Hi, my name is Ximei, Veneklasen, and I'm interviewing George Malaby. What is your name and where were you born?
My name is George Malaby, and I was born here in Tucson, Arizona.
When did you first begin to interact with Chinese grocers here in Tucson?
I met my wife when I was working at a gas station going to university, and she was also a student at the university. And I remember when her mom would come to the grocery store, and they had a station wagon as a family car. My mother-in-law would come in and say, "Give me $2 worth of gas, but give me a receipt for $5. I said, "Okay." So I gave her a receipt for $5, but I only got $2 worth of gas. And that's how she made her spending money sometimes.
Do you know why she did that?
Well, they had, that's a good question. They had a large family, and sometimes she wanted to buy little odds and ends for the family, you know. So that's how she had a little extra money in her purse.
Do you remember the Chinese grocers giving credit to people who shopped at their stores?
I sure do. I was quite young at that time, and my parents had a charge account with a grocery store, a Chinese grocery store. My grandma also used to have a charge account with Louis Market. Most all the grocery stores that I can remember had charge accounts, and that was just part of daily living. You know, if you needed a pound of butter or a gallon of milk and bread, you just would go up there and put it on the counter, and the owner would just write it up. Come payday, then my parents would go, you know, and pay the bill.
Do you have any particularly outstanding recollection of the Chinese grocers?
They were very important. A lot of us in our neighborhood, we depended on them, you know, to supply us with our groceries, really. And like I said, if it wasn't for them, I would be having a difficult time finding a store close by that we could buy groceries from. And like I said, they were very gracious. They would also, you know, make home deliveries if we didn't have a car. A lot of time we maybe bought too many boxes of groceries, and they would deliver, you know, at the end of the day, which we were very thankful.
Please describe your uncle's seafood store where the Chinese grocers bought fish.
Okay, there was only one store that sold fish, and that was called Roof Garden Fish. And my uncle, his name was Valentin, which means Valentine when you translate it. Valentin Feliz. And he had both retail and wholesale. You could walk in and you could buy it over the counter. And he had all kinds of fish. He'd get fish from Guaymas, Mexico, or other parts of, you know, Mexico. And I remember he had a couple of employees working there, and they had these real big saws. They were what they call bandsaw, and they would get the fish and go across and cut the heads off. And then they would fillet it, you know, open it up, clean the insides, and then they used to put it on the display and pack it with ice. Back in those days, not too many stores had refrigeration. We all had to depend on ice. So I remember when we used to walk from my grandma's house to the store where my uncle had the store. And my grandma would visit his brother and his wife. And like I said, if she wanted to buy fish, she'd buy, you know, a fillet. But my uncle had, like I said, he had all kinds of fish. He had like shrimp and squid and things of this type, and oysters. And at that time, you could buy sea turtles. You can't do it now. Sea turtle is protected, you know, by the government. It's called kawama in Spanish. And the meat is very good. It's very tender, and it tastes just like fish.
Which Chinese grocers did you know?
Was in the China. He had a grocery store called Frontier Village back on Pima and Alvernon, and there was, like I said, Chuck Fong, and there's several members of the Culture Center here that had grocery stores that my father-in-law would buy products after he retired, you know.
In this picture, please?
Yes, on this picture here, this was our Thanksgiving dinner with my father-in-law. And he was a terrific cook, one of the best cooks you could ever meet. These are members of the family. There's only one son, and the rest were all daughters. And I think there's 8 girls and 1 boy. And also in this picture, there's my son Robert. That's the oldest son that we have. And of course, I'm sitting next to my wife here, Mary. And like I said, all these other young ladies, they're all related to each other because they're all, you know, sisters. And they're all married. There's a couple that live outside of Tucson.
Okay. This one.
Okay. This was my grandmother, way before, you know, she met my grandfather and married. And if you'll notice, this is the way they dressed back in those days. That was, you know, part of their culture. See how they comb their hair and put it up, and the high, you know, collar on the dresses. And that was very formal for them, you know.
So what did your grandma do?
Well, I mean, my grandmother was quite young at the time. They came in from Mexico. I'm trying to name it, Ruiz, Mexico. They came to Tucson. Her dad had a small little business, and he had a couple of wagons, and he had 4 mules. And they used to haul ore, you know, ore, rocks and stuff like that, from a mine up in Wilcox, Arizona. And they would take it down, I believe it was down to Naco, Mexico, where there was a mill, and they would grind it and separate, you know, gold and silver and things of this type. But like I said, that's where my grandma came from. This was my grandfather when he had a little deli before the city took over and made a city, rejuvenated the downtown area. There used to be a street called Meyer, and that was in the heart of both residential and business on Meyer Street. My grandfather had a little deli, and back in those days, my grandfather, up in the front, he would sell produce, fruit, cigarettes, candy, things of this type, you know. And in the back room, he had a little room, I'm not too sure what size, but men would go back and gamble, play cards, poker, you know, things of this type, just to pass the time away. But back in those days, it was very common. You go to a grocery store and you would ask for a snow cone. And there was no refrigeration back in those days, you know, like they didn't have snow cone machines that they have nowadays, you know. Okay, well, they used to buy a block of ice, 50 pound or 75. And they used to have what they call, well, it was called a refrigerator, but it was not. They put this big block of ice, it was not insulated, it was just good galvanized metal, and it had a lid. It would go, one would go on top of the other. So you pick it up, and what you would do, there's and I don't want you to cut yourself, there's a blade here. Can you see that blade?
Yeah.
So what my grandfather used to do, he'd be shaving the block of ice like so until this lid started coming up. It was full. So they take it, and they had little paper cups, and he would scoop it down in the cup, stir it up, and get more ice, and then put it in the cup and pack it. And at those days, they used to have a syrup. We used to call it jarabe. It's called a syrup. And you had different types like pineapple, cherry, grape, root beer, and all that. And they would put the syrup on top of the shaved ice all over, and put a wooden spoon up on top, and that was your snow cone.
Was it very popular?
Very popular, it sure, especially like right now when it was hot. People would, after dinner or any special occasion, would walk down and buy one of these snow cones just to cool off.
Was it expensive? Or?
No, they were very inexpensive. I don't remember where you paid a nickel or a dime or something like that, you know, but it was not expensive. It was just a special treat. Okay, this picture is the 2 brothers. There's Valentin, and there's Martin is on this side. There's 3 girls. That was my grandmother. The sister was Rosario, and the other one was Angelita. And that was the family right there.
What did they all do?
Well, at that time, they were all quite young at that time. Valentin, which is on this side, he started that fish market, the roof garden. My other uncle, Martin, went to California. He lived and retired in Downey, California, in a factory. Out of here, there's two of the girls that became school teachers and taught school here in Tucson. And the other girl, I think she was just she married him, was a typical housewife. And he made it Chinese style, never American style. But when I say Chinese style, he would get the turkey and he would put like bacon grease on it. And then we had a screen porch in the back. He would hang it up for about 2 days. The reason for that he wanted the skin to get crispy, and it did get very crispy. But before he did that, he would wash the turkey real good on the outside and inside, and then put that bacon grease and then hang it up, you know. And after 2 days, he would take it down, and he would put in the cavity, he had different ingredients that he would stuff the turkey with. He would wipe the inside of the cavity with this particular, I think it was called black bean sauce or something like that, you know. And then he would get cilantro, a big head or a bunch of cilantro, and put it in the cavity. Then he would cut pieces of celery and also put it in the cavity. And then the gizzard of the turkey, again, he would put this sauce around the inside of the gizzard of the turkey. And then he put a big bunch of cilantro, and also he had some small pieces of celery. And then what he would do, and then he on the end of the turkey, he would sew it, and then he would put it in the oven and cook it that way. And real crispy, good turkey. You would enjoy it.